Why are narcissists preying on Christians? Where has the church gone wrong? And that there's so much vulnerability within its body of believers that narcissists in the world are taking full advantage of it. So I have in fact done what the church will not do for you, which is I began this list. I'm going to give you seven common reasons that I've come across as to why narcissists prey on Christians, or more specifically, why narcissists take advantage of church. Before we get into the 7 reasons, I do want to let you know that I'm here to support you. Down in the description box below this video, you'll find access for one-on-one appointments with me. So if you are somebody who's involved with church, or you come from a background of Christianity, and you're tired of being taken advantage of, you feel more vulnerable in life than empowered, and you're tired of being in abusive relationships, then head on down there, schedule some time with me. We'll go through all of these reasons on a very personal level so that you can free yourself, break the cycles of abuse that you are currently in, and live a life of passion and purpose, and more importantly, toxic-free. Head on down there, schedule some one-on-one time with me. Phone calls and video calls are available for you. Also, I do have a coaching program. My coaching program is live and in person each and every day, Monday through Friday. The Royal We community is centered around coming together, holding each other accountable to break the patterns and the cycles of abuse, break the trauma bonds, stay no contact, right? So if you're looking for accountability in your life, join the Royal We coaching program. Once again, all this information is down in the description box. So head on down there right now and do what you need to do. I'm here for you. Now let's get into the 7 reasons for vulnerability. Now, again, this is a list that I've started. You feel free to add to this list anything that I am missing out. Put it down in the comment section down below as to why you believe Christianity, or the church more specifically, has allowed vulnerabilities. All right, let's get into it. Number 1, the first thing that I come across as a coach is believing that anyone who confesses that Jesus Christ is Lord is automatically a safe person, safe to be intimate with, safe to have communion with. The reality, based on my own years of experience and what I've helped people discover and what I've learned from people just like you in situations, is that, listen, even the devil can confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, but it doesn't mean that the devil is a safe person to engage with or to hang out with. A lot of church culture out there, twisted theology, has presented itself to Christians as, well, as long as somebody has accepted that Jesus Christ is Lord, then they're safe. They're part of the body of believers that you might be engaged with at your church. Narcissistically abusive people love this concept, by the way, because what it does is it eliminates them having to show anything about their life. It takes away they can hide as a result of this, because all they have to do is say, I believe in that Jesus Christ is Lord, and as long as they're showing up, there's this attitude of, well, this is our family, this is our body, and that should be enough, and it's not. I believe it's for this reason that a lot of churches, as I've come across, are no more than hidey holes for abusers, users, psychopaths, sociopaths, and no longer, I mean, you don't even know any longer if you're sitting next to a womanizer, a beater, whatever. They're all in there. And the twisted theology is that as long as you acknowledge Jesus Christ and Lord, they're safe. No. And I've come to this realization that it's not true. It does not matter if they acknowledge Jesus Christ as Lord. Again, the devil can acknowledge Jesus Christ as Lord. It doesn't mean that the devil's going to observe or acknowledge or live according to any of the instructions. And I believe that's what you're up against, and you have to take that seriously. Just because you see people in the church that you go to give their lives to Jesus or whatever, raise their hands, go to the front, get their beginner's Bible, it doesn't mean that they are going to live according to what the teachings of Jesus has to say. So no, they're not safe. So don't allow this attitude of anybody who goes to church is safe. Don't allow that to create a vulnerability in your life. Number 2, the second reason is that people are either saved or they are lost. Now, I've come across this a lot with people. Perhaps you've been in this place too. You meet somebody, they're down and out. They've had a string of broken relationships. They've been in and out of marriages, whatever. You may look at them as being lost, and as a result, the twisted theology, the church culture that you go to has you believing that you can be a light and you can guide them. You can take them by their hand and guide them. The vulnerability in this is that narcissistically abusive people love this concept. Sure, they want you to believe that you're a light. They want you to believe that you're in a better place, and they'll gladly take your hand while you feed them, give them money, clothe them, make love to them, do this for them, all because you think you're leading the lost. When in reality, they're not really lost. They know exactly what they're doing. Most narcissistically abusive people that I have dealt with and that I've heard through my clients, other people experience, are very smart, very intelligent. They're very strategic. A lot of these people know exactly what they're doing, what they're after, and what they want, and have figured out a way to allow you to believe that you're leading them when in fact they're leading you. They're getting what they want from you while allowing you to lead them because they're putting on this facade that they're down and out and they need help and this and that. So there's a lot of vulnerability in this teaching that you're either found as a Christian or you're lost, and that if you're lost, you need that help. Listen, don't buy into it. It creates a lot of vulnerability. Look at where a person's at. Sure, you can lead them, but you better make sure you have your boundaries up, right? Number 3, the third vulnerability that I've come across as a coach is believing that God will provide you with a partner or with friends. Again, believing that God will provide you with a partner or with friends in life. This is something that's all too common. I hear it all the time. I'm not dating right now. I'm not doing this. I'm going to wait for God to present somebody to me. This is a twisted theology that creates vulnerability because God is not going to drop anybody into anyone's lap. God doesn't do that, not in my experience, and I've never seen it work. I've never talked to somebody who has said, Kevin, God just brought this person into my life. What this does, what this attitude and what this theology does is it takes away your responsibility to use the 6 senses that God has given you. Your eyes, your ears, your mouth, and all the other senses that you have to be able to judge people. This falls into the territory of not being judgmental. It takes away the responsibility you have to observe and to watch and to judge and to get to know somebody. And instead, narcissists like this because they can present themselves and say, hey, do you believe in fate? Do you believe that 2 people can just come together? And if you happen to be in that territory of, I've been waiting for God to bring someone into my life, well, you're screwed. And the relationship will come in like a whirlwind and it will end. Why? Because you didn't take the time to observe what you needed to observe in that relationship to make sure they're not abusive. The worst part about this is who gets blamed at the end of it? That's right, God. God, why do you keep bringing people into my life who were abusive, blah, blah, blah. God's going to look down at you and say, hey, listen, why don't you use your ears and your eyes and your mouth, and why don't you learn to judge people? But I thought I'm not supposed to judge people. No, you have to judge people. Right? We've got to stop putting everything on God and start accepting that God has equipped us with the ability to judge people. Listen, employers do a better job of picking people to hire and give paychecks to than you and I have done in picking people to come into our lives. And the church has done a horrible job of teaching people that you're supposed to do this. Again, a lot of the things we're talking about is because of twisted theology. All right. Number 4, the concept that love never fails. Love never fails. Narcissistically abusive people love this concept, and the church allows to promote this idea that if somebody's abusing you, you're not loving them enough. If somebody's mean to you, you're not loving them enough. You need to turn up that love more. And if you don't, well, then you're not a loving person and you're a failure. That's not at all what that scripture is trying to say. Narcissistic people love this because they can push you and abuse you. And then when you're at the breaking point and you're ready to leave the relationship, they'll say, but love never fails, which means you're not a loving person. Don't be vulnerable to that and don't buy into that nonsense anymore. Instead, I challenge you to look at it this way. If the relationship has failed because it's abusive and you're being abused, then look at the relationship as having failed and then acknowledge, well, there was never love in it. If you're abusive towards me, if the relationship has failed, it's because love has never existed, because love doesn't abuse. Love is not abusive. So the same verse that says love never fails, also, prior to love never fails, says love is not boastful, love is not abusive, love is not mean, love is not cruel. Then at the very end of that, it says love never fails. So what you could do is say, well, wait a minute. If all these things are already in this love, then that means it's not love at all. And that's why it failed. So fine, fair enough. Love never fails, which also means if they're boastful, abusive, neglectful, then you don't have love anyways. The relationship is not a relationship of love. Maybe you love them, but they don't love you. Not if they're boastful, arrogant, rude, proud, abusive. That's not love. So that's why it failed, not because your love failed, but because there was never love in it. All right? So don't be vulnerable to that. Number 5, the 5th reason I come across is the concept that in a relationship, you must die to yourself. This is another twisted biblical concept, die to yourself. Narcissists obviously love this. They prey upon people who are willing to die to themselves. Why? Because it makes their job easy. One of the main goals of a narcissistically abusive person is to get people to die to themselves. They go through great efforts to smear people's names so that they can separate people from their friends, from their families, from their careers, from their talents, from their hobbies. Because narcissistically abusive people want all the attention from that person onto themselves. So this idea of dying to yourself does half that job already for narcissistic people. This is why narcissists prey on Christians, because they know that a Christian person is ready to die to themselves, which is partly what narcissists are looking for. All right? Don't buy into that. You should not have to die to yourself in a relationship. You should not have to compromise yourself for a relationship. Do you know what another name for compromising yourself is? And by the way, I hear this all the time. People go to marriage counseling. In an abusive marriage, why? The best thing that a marriage counselor can do is get two people to compromise with each other, help people die to themselves. Another word for that is be fake. In other words, you're with an abusive person and they want you to do this and it's not really who you are, but compromise, die to yourself. Well, now suddenly you're doing this thing that you don't want to do. Or you're making them do something that they don't want to do. Well, now you have a relationship that's people being fake with each other. What's good about that? Who wants to be in a marriage or in a family relationship where everybody's being fake because everybody's compromising, because everybody has to die to themselves? That's pointless, and it's fruitless, and it's loveless. How about this? Cut away the relationships that require you to die to yourself. Cut away the relationships that are fake, and start looking for the relationships that accept you, that encourage you, that lift you up, that want you to live. Instead of living a life dying to yourself with other people, find people that want you to live according to who you are. And I promise you those people are out there. Don't be vulnerable to this churchy teaching that you have to die to yourself. I come across this all the time. Number 6 is don't be judgmental. Judge not, lest you be judged. Narcissistic people love this also for a lot of reasons. They prey upon Christians who are not judgmental. Why? Because they don't want to be judged. They want to live their life saying what they want to say, doing what they want to do, living life how they want to live. And if they can do all of that and come to somebody like you without being judged for it and make sure they're not judged for it, then they will. The sad reality, and this is where churches fail you, is that you are to be a judge. You have to judge. And your churches haven't taught you this, and I don't know why. But you have to judge. You have to use discernment. You have to use your observing abilities to discern right from wrong. If you're not judging people, then you've lost the concept of what right and wrong is. Narcissistic people don't want you to be judgmental. They want you to be accepting of them and all their wild behavior. And I deal with this all the time with my clients. People are like, I don't want to be judgmental, this and that. No, you have to be judgmental. Your life depends on it. We live in a very real world. You're up against the natural. You have to judge. Not judge as in walk around with your finger in people's faces. That's what abusive people do. You have to judge in a way that says, who are you? What do you want? Okay, you're that type of person. Stay that. I'm going to manage my distance from you. That's the type of judging you need to do. Because nobody's going to protect you as much as, or as good as you're going to protect yourself in this life, in the natural. So yes, you have to judge yourself. Number 7, the last one that I've compiled on this list is to love your enemy. Narcissists want you to love them. They love this. Love your enemy. And they'll use this against you. Oh, you don't like me. You hate me. So what? The Bible says to love me. Now, this is going to get into a side note here. It's very important that we understand that the word love that you and I use is not the same word love that was first written in this book. The word love, the English word love, is meaningless. It's absolutely void of any certain meaning. Abusive people say, I love you. Abusive people use it all the time. What does that mean even? The word that was actually used by Jesus in this context is agape, which has a very specific meaning. And I'm not going to get into what that is right now, but go research agape and you'll understand how you can agape your enemies. Because it's not attachment style. It's not enmeshed. It's not intimate. It's agape. All right? Narcissists want you to believe that you have to still be intimate with them. You have to be connected with them. No. Go learn how to agape your enemy and you'll be okay. But don't allow narcissistic people or your church to make you feel like you have to be enmeshed and entangled and intimate with cruel, nasty, malicious family members or spouses. So as I said, this is a list that I've compiled of 7 reasons that I typically come across as to why people who are Christian or come from a Christian background are preyed upon by narcissists. Don't let this be you anymore. Give me a call. Let's work this out. My name is Kevin. Down below in the description box, you'll find access for one-on-one appointments. Schedule some time with me. Video calls are available. Telephone calls are available. And I'll be back with more videos for you right here on The Royal We.